Yeah, like I said,
And
I think I hurt Baron's feelings in the Dark Tower thread. So,
oh, we are live.
all right, great. Hey, Baron, hope you join us.
Well, no, Baron's just going through some stuff right now, so sadly he can't be here with us. But we are going to be discussing The Stand by Stephen King, which is this big old book. I actually went and got the aftermarket like special art edition for The Stand because I'm bougie.
You are.
But yeah, guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves because I mean, not that you need one, but you know.
I know Sarah's famous, but go ahead.
Hey, my name is Sarah, and I am a big Stephen King fan. I read The Stand a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it, but Andrew's going to be the expert because he's read it most recently and he remembers the most details. But I am happy to have the chance to discuss it. It's going to be fun.
And my name is Mike, and I'm a Leo, and I enjoy long walks on the beach and talking about Stephen King books.
Moon. That spells Mike.
Yes, sir, it does.
Yeah, so this is definitely one of the most interesting books because I read this on my journey along the beam. Basically, I'm on my first read through of the Dark Tower. Well, I should say, I guess my second read through, but I never finished the first time through. And I finally picked up that The Stand kind of ties in to the Dark Tower a little bit. And yeah, so what are your like? Obviously, it's been a while since you guys have read this. What are your impressions of it that you remember? Like, because I know a lot of people say that this is King's all-time, best work, and I tend to disagree with that.
I can go. That's okay.
Yeah, no,
I really like The Stand. Of his two like big chunky books, The Stand and It, I think It is the one that I prefer. But I do really like The Stand. I know that it is long, it can be meandering, but I will follow Stephen King down whatever meandering road he wants to take me. It really doesn't bother me that I'm reading like a 1,000-page book when it could conceivably be like a 650-page book. I'm okay with that. But I read it for the first time a couple years ago. And I read it the exact way that Mike says not to read it. I read it during a readathon, and it was like the last 2 days of the readathon. So I read it, I think, on December 30th and 31st, and just like sat there. I was on Christmas vacation and just read it like straight through.
2 days?
And in 2 days, yeah. And it was really fun, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh my God.
This is one of those I actually put off for a long time, call myself a constant reader, but this was always the one that like I just didn't read because I don't know why. I mean, it's not like you look at It and you're like, oh yeah, that's not that long of a book. I always looked at The Stand was like, okay, it's thicker than It and the font is like 4-point, so it was always one that I kind of just put off. And then finally in 2016 or so, I started doing like before I started a YouTube channel and got sidetracked, I started doing a Stephen King reread. I was going to do everything from the beginning all the way through, and that was going to be the first time. So I got this one in 2017, and it took me about 2 weeks, which is I think is pretty fast for this book. But when you don't audio, I think that 2 weeks is pretty reasonable for this book. But yeah, it was just as good as I heard, and it's one of those things I said that look, It will always be my favorite Stephen King book. But if anyone wants to say, well, I think The Stand is his best book, I'm not going to argue with them.
So honestly, Mike, you are probably the driving force that got me back into Stephen King. And since then, I think I've read 15 to 16 Stephen King books in the last year and a half. And this is definitely like a top 5 for me. There is, we'll get full spoilers here in a little bit, but there is just one character in here who I wish hadn't been added back in. And yeah, if you know, you probably know. Who is? Do you guys remember who your favorite character is? Because I think mine will surprise people.
Larry Underwood is my favorite Stephen King character ever. So
ever,
yeah.
Okay, I think he's got the best arc within this story.
He's the everyman. That's what I love about him. He's the kind of guy that I always felt like I would be the guy who finally breaks out big and then the world ends. That's the kind of guy I've always thought that I would end up being.
This is
Well,
your
you're a
booktube
couple of years
moment.
into a
Larry Underwood.
75,000.
Well, you know, to be fair, right when the BookTube channel was taking off, like, a little pandemic happened. I was like, well, shit, maybe I was right this whole time.
This is a request for no one else to subscribe. If Mike hits 100K, then that's it. The pandemic's going to take a nosedive, and it's just all going to be over. His shining moment's going to be there, and then it's going to be through.
100% my fault.
No
Oh,
catching
gosh.
songs, nothing.
Well, Scott says, "Hi everyone, my analysis book good."
I like it.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
Scott. So Scott and I Scott's like my unofficial nemesis, because whenever nothing but love for Scott, nothing but love. But our tastes in books are like almost polar opposites, and then there's this like small sliver of books where we agree, and The Stand happens to be one of them.
Mhm.
So, mine is actually Tom Cullen. Speaking of Moon,
There's not very many wrong answers to this question with this book.
yeah, Tom is an absolute delight in this story. I loved it. It's funny because King a lot of the times does, mentally handicapped characters or people who have, I believe it's got is he like a psychopath or something? The refrigerator guy. That's how I remember him, as refrigerator guy. And King can write a character like nobody's business. And Tom Cullen, for me, he just hit all those right beats. Because he's just pure at heart. Like he's this man kid. And he just wants, he wants to go around town, get into the toy stores, and they're his toys and they're his Hot Wheels. And I love Tom Cullen. What about you, Sarah?
I do love Tom. Stephen King is like the king of the catchphrase. So I find he is the only author, or one of the only authors that I read, where the little like linguistic mannerisms that he gives to people are not irritating. Like they feel really true to life. And so there's in many of his books, like people will have things that they repeatedly say or a way of speaking, and it feels very natural. I find that comes off really stilted a lot of the time, especially in fantasy. Like people will try to make up words and they will either feel like out of place, or you will know like this is a fantasy word, like this is a fantasy concept, and it's kind of jarring. But at least for me, Stephen King, those little linguistic things that he does with his characters always feel really true to life. And so the MOON, Tom Cullen, like the thing, it only makes me smile, and it never felt like forced or anything else during the story. So I appreciated that. I like both of those characters. I think Nick is probably my favorite character in the book, but like Mike said, there's no wrong answer. There's a couple of wrong answers probably, but
there's a couple of wrong answers of who your favorite character is.
But I think Nick is probably my favorite.
Yeah, having a kid who had speech delay and his special needs, Tom's opposite characters became more dear to me in hindsight. But I think really the friendship between him and Nick is really something else, because only Stephen King could take a deaf and dumb guy or a deaf guy and a dumb guy together and make them just the perfect pairing. I mean, that's so great, that they could actually find that kind of solace in one another. And I don't know how much into spoilers we're going, but
we can go full spoilers.
King will make it hurt.
This is advertised as a full spoiler chat.
Yeah, did you want to do like a non-spoiler part at the beginning, Andrew, or we're just going full?
We can 100% do a non-spoiler part. One of the things, if we're going to go non-spoilers, one of my favorite aspects of The Stand is, like you were saying, the way that Cy King writes, all of the tiny characters, all the characters who shouldn't matter or who should matter, he will kill them off. Because I had to look this up before the live show, 99.4% of the world's population dies in this book. And we are left with that just tiny sliver of humanity. And so you are going to be introduced to characters that King is going to make you fall in love with so hard and so quick. Franny's father is an amazing, amazing character.
He's there for 5 minutes,
yeah, for 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes are just so heartfelt. Like, I mean, just the scene between Franny, her mother, and her father is so poignant. And then you just have to deal with the aftermath because, oddly enough, so has anybody read the 1978 version?
I've only read the
I have not.
1990 one, the complete
Yeah.
one.
So I was doing a little bit of research. The 1970 version doesn't have um Champion is his last name, but they don't have them leaving the military base. That
Okay.
whole section isn't there.
Hmm.
And so I think we just kind of pick up with Stu. And it's just so interesting because like he just shows up into his house and he's taken off. He's like getting his family. We got to get out of Dodge because the system messed up. And there's a super flu outbreak or Captain Trips. And man,
The
it is
9.4% thing is something that when everyone was like, because like I said, I was reviewing this on a schedule, which happened to be the March that what started happening. And everyone's like, oh, this is hitting a little too real. And I'm like, guys, 99.4% of the population dies.
in a
Relax.
month.
This isn't the same thing as Captain Trips, but I understood that everybody why there was a renewed interest in the book when during that happened, and everybody was kind of like sitting on their sofa looking for something to do. So
When I talk about heartfelt, so you find like 99.6% of people die or whatever, but it's like Stephen King he's just got to like poke the knife even further. And so he gives you all of these vignettes of the people who died because of the deaths, not just because of the flu. And that's even more terrifying, like especially as like reading it as a parent, which we all are. Like you think about, okay, so like these parents died, but then their kid's going to fall down like a well, or these horrible things are going to happen because there's nobody there to care for the people.
right,
Who
think about the
didn't
people who are
die.
immune and just died anyway, either by violence or starvation or just not knowing how to take care of themselves.
Yeah, that was way
that
worse.
whole thing. There's a whole like chapter
Mhm.
of where they're like, all right, and everybody's dead, but not quite.
Yeah, like there's one chapter where there's someone like thinking there's some weird thing going on TV, and it's actually like a militia like taking over and just slaughtering people. It's like, oh my god, yeah, madness.
The absolute analysis of the collapse of society that Stephen King goes through in part 1 of this book is just absolutely mind-boggling because there's information control, there's just martial law. It gets wild. And you look at that and you're like, oh, this is fiction. And then you're kind of thinking about it and you're like, no, this could probably happen.
Yeah, it was actually probably PG compared to what would really happen. So
yes,
it's absolute insanity.
And I think that's what I like about it better than a lot of dystopian books, I guess, if you want to classify it as that, is usually we either start where the catastrophe happened eons ago, and this is just like the new world, where this shows the breakdown in real time, and it's like, wow, yeah, kind of makes it hit a little harder.
What I didn't realize is the whole breakdown only takes place over about 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's great.
And then we're into this new society, which is absolute craziness. But so how does this compare? Because speaking of like post-apocalypse, I know you read Swan Song by Robert McCammon.
This would come up, yeah.
Yeah, you knew I was going to bring it up.
Sure.
How would you recommend this to fans of The Stand?
Absolutely. Here's the thing: is like I feel like people you kind of see this on my Discord where people feel like they got to pick one or the other, and it's like you can't have two amazing books that have similar concepts. It's kind of like how every few years you see like movies come out that are very, very similar, like Deep Impact and Armageddon came out like 3 months apart from one another. It's kind of how I compare these two books. It's like, you know what? They're different enough kind of based on the same idea that they work. One is a virus, one is a nuclear bombs. But I think they're both incredible books. And to me, it's more like I'm not seeing that one person that's going to like one and dislike the other. They're both really well done. They both have incredible characters. I think there are a bunch more characters in The Stand than there is in Swan Song, but they're both just master character writers. Apparently, I've only read 2 Robert McCammon books, but he's 2 for 2 on that front. But with this, I mean, King he got like 60 characters in this, and I was like, you will either love or love to hate every single character. There is no character that you're just kind of indifferent on, and you're going to feel every single dismissal of a character in the story, and I think that's just amazing. But yes, I think you would like Swan Song quite a bit if you like this.
I've got it on order, so I've already got 2 Robert McCammon books that aren't Swan Song, and I think I've got the audio for Boy's Life as well. So I'm obviously going to be taking that dive.
I think you like it.
That is the hope. The character that I kind of want to touch on that that I love to hate is I believe his name is Harold.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right? The nerd.
Yeah, that's an all-timer right there, buddy. You won't look very far to find other people who also hate Harold Lauer. So
yeah, his character arc is very interesting because he starts out like very creepy, and then he kind of, because of the apocalypse, he gets in shape, he gets his stuff together, but he's just got such a simmering rage underneath him that it's wild to see his arc from where he starts to his most defining moment, and then where he ends up is actually almost, I'm not going to call it a redemption arc, but it's interesting, because I'm like, oh no, dude, you kind of suck, but like,
no, kind of. He sucks.
I think Harold's what they always accuse all of us guys who played video games or read comic books to be. It's quite a stereotype. Living in mom's basement. It's very much a stereotype, but those people do exist. Just not all of us are like that. But yeah, very much a caricature of the living in mom's basement. Playing video games. Mm-hmm.
Derry's right. He has that. He never outgrew that adolescent. Like, she calls it a grudge, I call it a sense of entitlement. Like, Harold believes that he's entitled to things and to people, and nobody's going to tell him any differently. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and it's no one. I hate a lot of Stephen King villains, but Harold makes me like the angriest out of all of them, because I feel like some of his characters are stretched to, like, what is the nth degree of psychopathy that I can write about. But Harold is he's kind of like the other everyday man. Like, he's not a psychopath. He's not overtly torturing or harming people. He's just, he's such a slimy guy. I hate him.
I kept waiting for King to try to give him some kind of redemptive arc, and I kind of thought that's where he was headed. And then there's something that happens in the middle of the book. I'm like, oh, fuck that.
That's not happening. Speaking of villains, we've got, the titular villain here in this book, and technically, I call Mike Lord Multiverse, and speaking of multiverse, our villain is a multiverse villain.
Yep.
And Randall Flagg. And so it's funny, I've read now a couple stories with Randall Flagg in them, and I don't know if I consider him super villainous. Like, don't get me wrong, he's crazy and he's evil, but in terms of being the villain, he doesn't hit that, I'm the villain. It's just kind of like, I'm the charismatic, crazy guy. And that's kind of what I love about Randall.
Yeah, he's a little out there, ain't he? And the thing was, we speculated on this for years in a certain other series that Stephen King does, that was the same character. So when that does get confirmed, it's like, yeah, it's not as much mind-blowing as it was confirmation bias. I feel so good about this, But yeah, I think that what makes him unique, especially in this book, is that, you look at all the places that are full of lawlessness, New Vegas is basically the most lawful area in the entire land by his standards. But, it isn't what you would expect usually with a bad guy. You expect just to be just a madhouse, just a free-for-all, a slaughterhouse. And he's actually kind of got law and order more in his area than, the stuff that's going on in the Boulder Free Zone. So that's what I always kind of found compelling about that villain. He has a code. He has some kind of moral ethics. It's weird. And you wouldn't usually see that in a character like that. And I think that's what made him different from me.
Yeah, he falls more on the side of calculating evil rather than just chaotic evil.
Yeah, he's not crouching in the background. Just he's
There's a lot of jokes that I really want to make right now, but you're not over, so I can't make any of them.
You can tell me afterwards. Just shoot me a voice message. But no, he's a very charismatic, almost this Messiah complex villain. So he's basically a cult leader, and it's very interesting because he leads through charisma, but also through fear, and he's convinced everybody in the New Vegas area that he's basically omniscient. even though, is he? He's got eyes and ears everywhere, but that doesn't exactly equal omniscience. And so I thought that was very interesting.
Well, I think a lot of people also would kind of consider Lloyd somewhat of the villain of the story. And I think that guy has an incredible arc in this book, honestly. Because Lloyd, you think about where he starts and where he ends up, it's a full arc for a villain like that. I'd never really kind of seen, really, at that point, a character quite developed like he was. And I'd read a lot of Stephen King books before this, and I think that Lloyd's probably one of his most layered villains, honestly.
Now, Lloyd is the bank robber, right?
The henchman, yeah. I guess you call him he call him Flag's right hand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
The one who's about to eat rats.
Oh, yeah, in the prison cell.
Yeah.
Didn't he? There's a scene there where like he gets a little bit on the hungry side. And that kind of turned my stomach. Well, I don't remember. Did he actually take the bite? Or did Randall Flagg show up before he could take the bite?
I thought he showed up first.
I'm pretty sure him showing up is what makes Lloyd stop, because, first, I believe, if I recall correctly, he thinks he's hallucinated. He's so hungry, he thinks he's hallucinating the Man in Black, someone who's going to let him out. Or I'm sorry, Randall Flagg. Whoopsie. But yeah, if I recall correctly, that is how it happened.
Okay.
And I think it ties into that, you said, like, that cult mentality, Andrew, like, Randall Flagg gives him a sense of purpose and gives him this new outlook on life. And so he is able to become that layered villain that Mike's talking about. He's, he feels like he's been given this like redemptive second chance and he wants to make good use of it.
Yeah. Madison says what makes Flagg the ultimate villain, like you're saying, is his influence. He brings out the worst in people, which is scary. So that's a very, very good insight. On the flip side, Derry felt sorry for Lloyd.
I do too. I think, he's every time he kind of starts to, try to turn things over, he's like, well, I guess I'm in too deep now. So I think he's conflicted, which you usually wouldn't see with a character that starts off the story like he is. He's much more conflicted than you would expect. So I call him a gray-ish black character where he's not quite, he isn't going to be, walking old ladies across the street anytime soon. But I don't think he wants to. He'd like to change. He really would.
Well, and I think we by the end of the story, I think we start to see him like, fight against Flagg's influence until, we get the explosive ending of the book.
Explosive. I like that.
Mike's trying to get like 50,000 people to join our stream now. So it'll become like the most watched stream on BookTube.
So guy Madison says, hey, send me a link so I can join. I sent. She says, oh, I'm actually in the tub. There you go, guys. You're about to see the view count go up here, I think.
Yeah, that will probably become my most watched video of all time and probably get demonetized and pulled down.
Got to take the bag.
I mean, most watched video. I don't know.
Yeah. Way to derail the show, Mad. You don't even hear, and you derailed the show. All right.
Oh my word!
He doesn't know what to ask next.
So one thing that since we're still in kind of a soft, non-spoiler spoiler section, I want to touch base on the fact that we have a really strong female character within this story in Francine.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Nadine. I was about to say, really?
No.
Oh,
no, Franny's great.
No, Franny's amazing. Nadine starts out pretty good, and then Randall Flagg happens, and that's interesting.
I think Nadine's kind of like that Denise Richards type that everybody's, oh my gosh, she's so hot, but good Lord, she got some crazy looking eyes. Maybe that tells you a little more than you need to know. And I think that Nadine that's pretty much what I imagine is Denise Richards. Yeah.
Well, I was rooting for Larry and Nadine right up until part 2.
Your romance heart was broken.
Oh yeah, no, that did not work out. But we've got Stu and we've got Francine, and I mean, just a very loving relationship there. We've got a very, obviously at the start of the story, we've got Francine who has basically come down with child. She's made some poor decisions. She's kind of moved back home. We mentioned a little bit of friction between her parents. Her mom obviously does not approve. And that was a very interesting relationship to kind of sink your teeth into for a little bit. But
you get like the exact flavor of it in so few pages. That's what's
oh
amazing.
God, it's amazing. That's what I'm like. That harkens back to like you meet these characters. 99.4% of the world's population is gonna die, but man, you fall in love with those characters or you grow to hate them real quick.
Hey, Dominic, that would be Shreveport, Louisiana. I know that because we went there for Christmas one year, and when I saw it in the book, I was like, "Oh, hey, other people have heard of Shreveport, Louisiana," and I can't believe I remember that, but I can't remember what I did this afternoon. All right, sorry.
Oh God,
great time.
The kid is the one character I wanted removed from the story.
No, is that one that wasn't in the original story? That was in the
correct. He was removed.
Okay.
He's part of the 400 pages that got added back into the story.
Knowing what happens with his character, I could have told you when you started this book that you would not like certain things.
He's the only thing that bothered me. So it's funny. Speaking of, Stephen King, I've got so the kid is the exact reason why I don't like Wizard and Glass. Because it's that kind of weird. It's that kind of weird that just gives me the willies.
Yeah.
And so even though Wizard and Glass has this great story and this great characterization, that injection of straight weirdness, I can just like licking her cat. Just ugh.
Well, you've read a lot more Stephen King recently. You got to know you're always going to expect to have at least 2 or 3 Stephen moments per book. I mean, it's just going to happen. I mean, it's the good with the bad. Like I said, with King, it's almost always good, but you're going to have that 0.1% every book where you're like, how much drugs were you on right now, sir?
And the kid is that character where I was just like, okay, either you were hitting the bottle or like something happened here, Stephen King, because that was way
all over the years when he was still using, I used to be like, man, Stephen, you got to get off the drugs, man. And then I got to like certain parts of Dark Tower and like, get back on the drugs, Stephen. Jesus Christ.
What are you doing?
I'm the worst.
Do you have a P.O. box? Not that I'm advocating for shipping narcotics in the mail. Don't do that. PSA. Don't ship narcotics to the US.
A character I love is Glenn Bateman. I don't hear enough people mention Glenn. That's very much like the mentor figure that I always wished that I had.
Glenn's the old.
Nobody talks about Stu either because they just feel like he's just like the everyman, or he's like the the glue character, I guess you say, or he's just pretty vanilla, I guess you could say anything like
he's
that.
He's well rounded. He's the rock of the story.
But it's like every major fantasy series. It's like whoever the main character is, you almost never hear anybody say that's their favorite character. It's always some other character. So that's how I feel about Stu too, where he's set up to be the main character of the story. But I don't ever hear anybody talk about him or Glenn. Oh, I love Glenn.
Glenn's the old coot at the end of the story, right?
He's the one with Kojak. He's the one with Kojak.
Yeah.
He's the one with the dog.
With the dog.
Yeah, like I said, he is very pessimistic, but it's in like that old man shakes fist at cloud kind of way, and he's like, experience makes you wise, I think I would say. But he has his crass way of going about saying stuff. But I think he very much is a good mentor to Stu, as far as like helping him become the leader that he is.
He is the most gunslinger-like character of the Stand, for sure.
Is he the one who blows the crap out of the hotel room? When the bird when we get this kind of Edgar Allan Poe moment in part 3 when he's on his way to New Vegas.
Don't recall, but I don't think so. Okay,
yeah.
I'm only thinking of one very explosive moment, or two, honestly. But I'm thinking about the one in the middle of the book and the one at the end of the book. The middle of the book, I'm thinking that's the Herald one.
That's the
Jerry
judge.
says the judge.
Okay, yeah.
I'm thinking of the judge.
The judge, yes. Are we doing spoilers? Is this?
Yeah. Let's just transition into full spoilers right now.
Yeah, because the judge is the one who sacrifices himself, right?
Yes, in like this just reign of glory, like he is
also very gunslinger-like.
I'm gonna be honest. Glenn is not sticking out in my mind. I remember the guy with the dog, but
See, we don't ever notice the old Obi-Wan Kenobi characters. We never notice these. See, it's just me. That's the thing about this book has so many great characters that, you know, some of them can kind of start to bleed together. At least I don't think so. I always felt like they were kind of, you know, easily differentiated while I was reading it. But over time, you're like, okay, if I ever want to read anything again, I got to let some of these 65 characters go. You know, that kind of thing. Like, I still remember like Julie Lowry, I think, is like the crazy one that tries to hump Nick in the middle of a store. You know, she's like insane. But I remember stuff like that. But I'm like, who is Trash Can Man again? You know, I like to do that. You know, who's a much
Trash
more
Can Man's the guy who blows up.
Yeah. My life for you. Yeah.
He comes in like a wrecking ball. Miley Cyrus that.
He goes out like a wrecking ball too.
It was funny because whenever I think of that, I just think of Mad Max.
Oh, definitely.
We're like, just, you know, when they're like spraying, I'm thinking new Mad Max where they're like spraying the silver paint on their teeth and just going full crazy. Like, that's Trash Can Man for me. That dude is absolutely bonkers.
So, Andrew, let me ask you, as the most recent reader, is a lot of people I know that read this book say that the Boulder Zone, Boulder Free Zone, where they're basically reestablishing society, they consider that part just dreadfully boring. Did you find that boring at all?
No.
See, no, I think it's because most Stephen King fans, we like that time where you're just spending time with the characters and they're not actually doing anything. They're just living their lives. We actually like that about Stephen King, and I think that he does that so great. And that's why I think people they read this because they hear it's like a Stephen King fantasy-ish kind of story. They read it, and so when they get to that part, they're just like, "Well," say they do the same thing with 11/22/63. Oh, I didn't like that part where there's like 200 pages where they're not doing anything. I'm like, that book can do no wrong in my mind. So I'm curious how you felt about that, because I think the segments are great.
I'm a lot like you, where I love that slice of life when it comes to Stephen King. And so, like, literally, I want the day in of these characters. Like, and I loved it in 11/22/63 as well. So in both instances, I love whenever he just slows down. And it's weird because if any other author did that, I'd get annoyed with it. But for some reason, like when Stephen King does it, all of a sudden I'm in.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Like, I just read Jade Legacy, and it's like I like her characters and I like spending time with them, but she's not as good as like King or McCammon is at just making me be like invested into what these people are doing. You know, that's kind of a high bar. I mean, yeah, she's not as good as my favorite author ever. I mean, that's kind of a high bar there. But I'm just saying that when other people try to do it, I'm not quite as wild about it. So, you know, maybe it is just a King thing.
Dominic wants to know what we felt about the epilogue.
No, not all copies have the epilogue, do they? Some copies do.
I'm trying to remember what it is about. Is it about the Stu and Frank's baby?
Well, it's basically where they decide to leave the Boulder Free Zone and start repopulating and going out.
I always said that if the ever was going to be a sequel to one of his books, big books that I wanted to see, it would be this, just to see, you know, maybe see where they are 30, 50 years after this, where that baby is now and stuff like that. Yeah, I would always be interested, but I guess I didn't have one feeling about it either way. But with me, this one, it always comes down to the whole hand of God thing that everybody is either completely, you know, they completely think it's stupid, but you know, that's always, I guess, the argument we've always had. So
it didn't bother me. I didn't feel one way about it either in either direction. Like, I was fine with it because it made a little bit of a logical sense. Like, yeah, you can hole up in the Boulder Free Zone all you want, but like, you know, there are all these resources out there. There's all of these mountainsteads or like homesteads that you can go in. And why not go back out and repopulate? And they even said, hey, if this doesn't work, we'll come back in and see if we can't make it work. But like, they got, you know, they were homesick, and why not? I mean, their entire lives got upended really quickly. And so it didn't bother me at all that they decided to just go back out into the world.
I've done a lot of multiverse stuff, and I've never heard what Carl is talking about in the thing that Mother Abigail is John Coffey's mom, and that's why he's able to give Paul extra long life in Green Mile. Huh. That's an interesting one.
Does the timing line up, like the year in which the Green Mile is set versus when the Stand is set?
No, it really doesn't. Because Green Mile takes place in the 1930s. 1930s,
and the Stand is what?
1990.
Well, it was originally in like 1979 or something like that, or 1980s, early 1980s. But
I mean, Mother Abigail's
as we saw in Dark Tower when it went back to the Stand, alternate timelines and stuff, and not all the time periods are going to line up exactly. It's not the same year here as it is in that world, kind of thing. So, that's a neat theory, though. I like it.
When you guys are talking about the epilogue, is there not an epilogue where you see Randall Flagg again? Like he pops up on an island and there are people there and they start like worshiping him?
There is that one. If that's what Derek was talking about, again, I didn't have, or Dominic, I don't have a feeling about it one way or the other. I read it.
I don't even remember the epilogue very well, so I guess I didn't have that much of a problem with it.
I don't know if that one's in all the copies. Like, I think that it is another like extra epilogue that was written for another edition.
It's for the extended 1990 edition.
Okay.
Yeah. So
just to go back to it, Carl points out that Mother Abigail was 106, so the math actually would work out a little.
Also true.
Yeah.
Good theory. I like it.
Yeah.
She's up there. And I thought she was 108, so what do I know?
How dare you? God, did you even read this book? Jeez.
No.
That's the first thing I would get in my comments. She's 106, not 108. You didn't even read this. Just wait, Andrew. Channel's getting bigger. You're going to start getting comments like that really soon.
I mean, I'm only at like 2,300 subscribers. It's fine. It's fine. I've got as many subscribers as you got last month. If we want to get technical. And I've been doing this for over a year.
That's all right. That's all right. It took me, gosh. Oh, I don't remember.
I'm just kidding. So what moments what are some of your favorite moments from this book?
I don't know if my favorite moments stand out the most. I think like the heartbreaking moments are the ones that I still remember. Like being a fan of Nick, like his death hits hard for sure.
Definitely. And I think when Nick is like going around and like being with people who were dying of the super flu and all that stuff always still really sticks out to me. But just anytime Tom and Nick are together, I think it's just gold. That's like my favorite buddy cop movie right there. I love
Tom's escape and like coming back when you're, I don't know.
Oh my God, when they send Tom to Vegas, I'm like, what are you doing?
What's happening? And you don't really expect him to die, but like it's Stephen King, so it could happen. And it was just really stressful.
I guess when they decide to make their stand and they're walking to basically, they all know that they're going to die. And I'm like, why did you send Larry with this group? Damn you, King. So I guess kind of that.
So it's funny. So as a recent reader, and you're probably going to vehemently disagree with me here, I loved Nick in the first part of the story when he's with the sheriff and everything like that. I loved that sheriff. When the sheriff died, again, another heartbreaking character. And then like he meets Tom, and all the way through part 2, I was there. I loved Nick, and then he vanishes for about 300 pages, where like he'll get mentioned or he'll like write a note in the New Boulder like committee meetings and stuff like that. But other than that, we don't really sit with Nick. So then all of a sudden the house blows up and Nick's dead. And everyone's like, oh no, Nick died. And I'm like, yeah, well, Nick's been gone for a while.
Callousness with which you say that.
And I know it's an unpopular opinion, but it kind of shifts to Stu and Francine and what they're dealing with Harold. And so he just kind of takes a back seat. And I actually liked it when he came back as kind of like the dream Nick. And that was cool. But what's cool about Nick's death is apparently Stephen King got stuck. He couldn't finish the book. He had too many characters, too many things going on. And so he needed something explosive, quite literally, to push himself through the story. So he blew up Nick, and that's how he finished the story, because he couldn't figure out how to move past this specific point.
I gotta say, when you're an author that has like 60-something characters, you do it with in mind that I can kill a bunch of these people and get away with it. Yeah.
Somebody's got to die, because, frankly, I'm getting sick of all of you.
Oh, no. How did you feel about the ending, Andrew? I have talked to Mike before about it. I'm just wondering how you felt about it.
Like we talked about with them leaving the Boulder Free Zone?
No, the Hand of God, I think she's
just
talking
the
about.
hand, yeah.
The explosive Mad Max ending?
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, okay, like that's one way to handle this situation. Like, if you're gonna have somebody like Trash Can Man running around kind of loose, you didn't kind of lock down the Air Force base and he got in. So I actually kind of loved the moment of the explosion when we're sitting with Trash Can Man, because I'm just like, this is insanity. I kind of love it. And then like Larry and all of them die, and I'm like, oh, that kind of hurt. And
I'll say what I said when I believe when we talked about this, Sarah. Just I think King presents this as a story about believing in a higher power, kind of thing, a story of faith. The whole time he's kind of saying like I believe it's when Nick says like he doesn't believe in God, Mother goes, but he believes in you, kind of thing. It's learning to let go and believe in a higher power. So I think that he actually sets that ending up very well. Just people just couldn't take a big, glowing hand setting off a nuclear bomb. I can see why people might have thought that was kind of corny, but I was like, I can't call it a bad ending when he set it up the whole time that this was kind of going this way. So it never really bothered me that much, but I can see why other people can't get down with it.
No, it's thematically resonant, so it works, I think.
Well, yeah, and it kind of ties back because like Trash Can worships Randall Flagg. And so he's got that whole Messiah thing going on, and he feels like, if I remember correctly, that Randall Flagg has abandoned him, and he's lost kind of that blessing, and that he no longer trusts him because he's this loose cannon, and he thinks dropping a bomb is going to bring him back into his good graces because reasons. So that's what he decides to do. And frankly, like if you were following Trash Can, it fits with his character.
I don't know if you guys watch old movies like I do because I'm older than you guys, but very Doctor Strangelove to me, straddling on the bomb, yeehaw, kind of thing. That's exactly what made me think of. I'm pretty sure that had to be King's influence for that scene, which is just an amazing scene. So
just imagine being Trash Can Man. Like the moment you lit a match for the first time, you were in love, and then like you go out in that way. He was like the pinnacle for him. That was his.
And another thing with Swan Song, there's something that for the very first sentence of Swan Song will make you think of that moment that you just mentioned, Sarah.
Yeah, I will.
It's really awesome.
I'm excited to read it. Have either of you guys read The Fireman, which is Joe Hill's kind of stand type?
I'm doing it this October.
You're gonna do it this year.
I'm starting Joe Hill with Nosferatu.
Right.
I love Nosferatu, and I loved what did I just read? The Heart-Shaped Box was really good. So he's 2 for 2 for me so far. So I'm excited to do Fireman this year.
I really liked it. It's long, like The Stand. There are some similar tropes, I guess, that are used, like some similar character situations, and I think it really was an homage.
Is it long? Shit. I got like 6 books planned in October. I didn't know. Oh, okay. I only have the Kindle version, so I didn't know how thick it was. That's what's dangerous about going digital on some of these things, guys. You don't know how long some of these books are. So you start, you're like, wait, 987 pages.
It's so readable, though. He's like his dad.
First books usually has The Fireman, so I guess I'm picking it up next time I go in.
It's like that Brian Lee Durfee book I just started, and my Kindle, and it said like page 1400. I was like, oh my god! So, yeah, all right. I didn't want to read anything else this month.
That's a long book. I still need to read the Blackest Heart, book 2, because is book 3 out, or is it still
November? That's why I'm finally reading them.
Oh, okay. All right. I read the first book last year.
But I'm doing that one right now, so.
I saw
yeah, I know.
Haven't read it since it was actually coming out as serial novels. So, I figure we got Fairy Tale next month. So I want to make sure I keep up my good, one Stephen King book a month. That's the way. This is the way, right? That's how we do it.
Next
so
month,
read like 9 of them before then. So, yeah.
Next month, I'm doing Needful Things. So.
Great flick. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Are you not reading Fairy Tale when it comes out, Andrew?
Yeah, he will. He'll just be reading 9 other things at the same time.
Yeah. I'm reading like 4 books right now, so
you read Boy's Life before me, right? Because I'm pretty sure you messaged me like you got to read this right now. Yeah, so Andrew, I think you got to get on that.
Mm-hmm.
I got the audio book, so in 2 days, and I can probably get it done.
You know me, I don't audio, but I do know that everyone on the Discord was flipping about it how great the audio was. So enjoy, I guess.
Interesting. Did you do audio for The Stand, Andrew?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Who's the narrator for the audiobook?
You have put me on the spot, and I don't know.
What was it like? Was it like an 85-hour audiobook?
Oh God! You know what? There's a really quick way to find out. Let's go to Audible.
Well, whenever I ask that, people are like, "Oh, it doesn't matter because you don't listen to it on that speed." I'm like, "You don't?"
No, I tend to listen at 1.5 speed. Grover Gardner is the narrator, and it is 47 hours and 47 minutes.
Goodness.
Right. I guess if it took me like two weeks to read, that sounds about right. Yeah.
So I read it or I guess I should say I listened to it in 4 days. So I mean, Sarah's still got me beat by 2 days because of absolute insanity. I haven't been able to read like that since I was a teenager.
A Christmas miracle.
One heck of a Christmas miracle.
I refuse to believe that you can't get in the hyperfocus zone, Andrew. You must.
So I can. I've just got 2 tiny human beings that hang on me.
Second baby makes everything. First baby, you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's almost like having a dog. It's not that big of a deal. Then you have a second one, like, oh my god, yeah, it completely changes everything.
Like earlier, if you saw me look up, I just heard doom 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 doom.
Yeah.
Doom doom doom.
Oh dear.
So am I the only one with the stand that has actually like made up music for Baby Can You Dig Your Man? Am I the only one who's kind of like got this song in my head?
Yes,
but now you sing it for you. I'm not going to sing it for you.
You know what?
Am I the only one?
I think it's time for your musical debut.
No, because I mean, you got to think that this is the last song before civilization is destroyed. So this song's stuck in everyone's head because it's the last big song they ever heard before the world ended. So I don't know. I love the way that he references that all the time because I'm like, what an awful title. Baby, can you dig your man?
And everything about his characters, gold. I
didn't even watch that new adaptation that they did on what was it?
What was it?
CBS All Access or something like that. I don't know, just like before it came out, the stuff that they were saying about it and how they were going for this and going for that. And I was like, how about you go for the fucking book? That would be a great idea, But everyone thinks that they're better writers than Stephen King, and they're not. So that's why his adaptations almost always. And I've watched some bad ones, guys. I've watched all the bad ones, and I wouldn't even watch this because I thought that this had so much potential to actually do a faithful adaptation. They had like 12 hours, so they didn't have to rush anything, and instead they make up a bunch of shit. Why? Why do they do this?
I had a friend who watched the first episode and then sent me a text and was like, this will only make you sad. Don't do it.
Yeah, my buddy Jaime Fuego over a horror show, he was trying to stay optimistic about it for a while, and he was like, dude, they're trying to make Randall Flagg a certain former US president so bad that it's just like annoying, and it's like no one thinks of Randall Flagg that way. No one. So
no, yeah, there's hold on. So there is a illustration of him, right here. Hold on.
Looks like the Mummy.
Randall Flagg in the epilogue.
There we go.
Like, I mean, he's shredded. He is ripped.
Oh, look, you've got to respect the work he's been putting in at the gym. Him and Skeletor, you got to respect the work they put in at the gym. All right.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. See, my guy Scott here. Now he's an easy critic when it comes to adaptation, film, TV, everything. He'll be like, it's pretty good. If he says it's bad, guys, it is terrible. It's terrible.
I
watched the 94 one though. It's low budget, but it's pretty faithful.
I still need to watch the 1980s It, because like I haven't watched any. Huh?
It's 1990. I know, because that was my gateway to Stephen King, was when that miniseries came out, and then I was obsessed. Everything had to be Stephen King after that.
Well,
but yeah, watch it. You'll think it's corny, it's hokey, but it was made for TV.
I was
Tim
born
Curry is just a delight
in 1990. So
I was born in 1990.
I mean, I guess the only thing I have to say is that it's like I was definitely too young to be watching it. Maybe.
Right. Scott says, "Wait, easy critic."
Dude, every movie that you go and see, everyone is like trashing this movie, and you'll be like, "Me and my wife went and saw it. We thought it was pretty good. It was fine." That's all.
That just means you're
So
nice.
what I'm saying is like you don't love everything. I'm just saying that you will give most things a pass. Whereas I know if you say it is trash, it's got to be bad. I didn't even watch Gray Man because of your review of it. So.
Oh man. So what moments do you wish had stayed cut within the stand? Because like what moments do you think don't need to be there?
See, I don't
Because
know
I
the
know we
difference.
like the slice of life.
Oh, you mean? Oh, I thought you meant the difference between the 78 and the 90 version. Oh,
Oh.
no. I wish it had been longer. When everybody says that this and it are too long, I'm like, I wish it had been longer. I just wanted to spend more time with all these people. That you spend this much time. It's kind of like how I felt when I finished Wheel of Time. There was stuff I wasn't really wild about. There was stuff that felt like it meandered a bit, but in the end, I was sad to see these characters go. I kind of had that same feeling with The Stand. That I've spent so much time with these people. I feel like they're my buds at this point, or
I
I
was
feel like
sad
they're
that
my
I read
nemesis.
100 pages of Wheel of Time.
What's that?
Said I was sad that I read 100 pages of Wheel of Time.
Well, there's that.
I know. I'm sorry.
Leave
I'm sorry.
my babies alone.
I know. I'll try again one day. I will when I'm less crabby. The one thing that I would change about The Stand, the one thing that makes me mad, is the evil wolves. Why? Why you got to do that, Stephen King? Wolves are the best fantasy animal. You should not make them vehicles for Randall Flagg. Take something else. Take another animal.
Well, I think he's a crow also, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the crows as well.
You guys ever read Children of the Corn?
I have not.
Well, Children of the Corn has this whole he who walks behind the rose thing. That's like the big like entity or whatever. And it's never been confirmed by King, but it's like you see these moments where he's in Kansas with Mother Abigail out there in her cornfields, and everybody's like, holy shit, is Randall Flagg actually he who walks behind the rose? And it's like, there's another connection for you, maybe. They never really is confirmed or denied it. So that's just one that I always think about. Because Children of the Corn, everyone just wants to talk about those horrible, horrible movies, but the short story is actually pretty good.
What collection is that in?
I think it might be Night Shift.
Shift.
Night Shift, yeah.
So it's funny with Children of the Corn, the short story. I remember getting annoyed because, and so the way it starts is it's just this husband and wife just absolutely going at each other on a car trip. Like, I mean, and they are just going at it. Hate that relationship. So the whole time I'm like, dude, just go, just run, just leave her. Like,
come on, Andrew. This is probably before GPS. I'm sure it was very stressful to be stuck in a car with someone.
See, I don't remember that much as I remember Desperation. I think Desperation had a lot of people fighting in a car, right? So I don't know. I haven't read Desperation since it was brand new. In fact, this whole string of books I'm doing right now I haven't read since I was, in high school. So these are all like new to me again almost. If it doesn't have a movie or something that's actually watchable, because I know that Desperation did have a miniseries, and I was like, this is bad. So I didn't even finish that one. But yeah, so this is all like new to me again.
Well, I mean, it's almost all new to me as well. The only thing I read prior to starting my booktube channel, I read The Shining. I loved The Shining in college. I fucking love that book.
I don't think I've ever heard you say that word.
Yeah, I know. It's my channel. Anyway, I don't swear on my channel all that often, but
demonetized.
Sorry,
I dropped 2 F-bombs this episode. Sorry about that.
No, I feel like we're rubbing off on him. Like the vibes have like gone over to his side of the screen.
I love.
Young. He was born in 1990.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm still a wee little lad. Despite the fact that I've got 2 children.
Sorry,
anyway,
what were you saying, Andrew? I apologize.
I'd only read the first 5.5 Dark Tower and The Shining. That was it. And now, like, I've done 11/22/63. I've done The Stand. I've done it. I'm finishing up Dark Tower. I've done Salem Slot. I've done Insomnia, which I just recently finished Insomnia. And chef's kiss.
Yeah, that was much better on my reread because I think reading it after Dark Tower makes so much more sense. If you try to read that before Dark Tower, you're like, what the hell is Steven's back on the dope, you guys? So.
But I mean, I've just there's so many great books out there written by just Stephen King. He's broken into like my top 5 authors of all time. and I absolutely loving everything I'm reading. And diving into this, I tried reading The Stand back in 2008. And I remember I had a girlfriend at the time, and her mom had the mass market paperback, which, if you think this is thick, imagine this in mass market paperback.
That's what I
It's,
Oh
have.
yeah, yeah.
it's like that much thicker.
Funny thing is like I started reading it on the mass market, and I was like, no, 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 no. So I went to eBay and actually way overpaid for a hardcover because of course, when you're actually looking for a hardcover, it's never in any of the used bookstores. But as soon as you overpay for it on eBay, can't stop finding them in the used
Oh
bookstores.
God,
So right
every
after I paid
single
like
time.
$50 for this version, then I've seen them all over the place in the bookstore for half that price. So
Yeah,
That's how it
I
goes.
paid $20 for this.
too many dollars.
Yeah.
20.
Well, and then I paid $35 for the dust jacket. So
Ooh. All right, I have to take off, guys. I'm getting kicked off the computer so my husband can come and do his thing. But thank you for inviting me, Andrew. I had a really good time. I always love discussing Stephen King. Mike, maybe we can chat about Fairy Tale.
I
force
look
Andrew
forward
read
to it.
it.
Definitely have some kind of debriefing for Fairy Tale, maybe like a spoiler talk or something. That should be definitely
hey,
really,
I
really fun.
will. I'm going to be reading. So if you
All
want to include me,
Bye,
I will
guys.
butt my way into a good read.
Always.
See you, Sarah. Thank you.
I'll stay
yeah,
for anything else you got, my man. It's
yeah,
King.
absolutely. So, switching gears, when it comes to The Stand, do you feel like it flows structurally fairly well? Because I know a lot of people, again, like you were mentioning, complain about that middle section where we're getting, Nick, and we're meeting Tom, and we're forming the Boulder Free Zone, and we're setting up committees. Do you think that the structure ends up working overall?
I mean, I think so, but I've also, like I said, I didn't read this, before I read a lot of his other books. I think I kind of got used to that structure. If you're starting with the beginning with King, and you do Carrie, you do Salem's Lot, you do The Shining, and then you get to this, and you're like, this is way different than anything I think he's ever done. Whereas I think in Salem's Lot, he did a really good job of like setting up that town. I think he does just an amazing job of that. He never has where it's just for 200 pages. We're going to just kind of hang out in that town and see how things work, like he does really well in Needful Things. So I'd read something like Needful Things. I'd read, like I said, 11/22/63 before I read this. So I think that I don't know if I can take a step back and look at it with those kind of eyes of saying that, oh, this is weird. I don't know how I like this, because I was already used to that storytelling technique in several other of his books first. So as you being somewhat new, what do you think?
Well, so it's interesting because for me personally, I think it works. Mainly because we have this, my buddy Jake, the bookish drummer, he's a huge Stephen King fan, and he loves the first part, hates the middle part. He doesn't really like King's slice of life stuff, which then confuses me because he's a King fan. But yeah, so we've got this whole fall of society. We've got, people dying left and right. We've got martial law, and then we jump to part two, where it's, we're hunting for Mother L. Randall Flagg is kind of assuming power. He's gone and gotten his right hand, broken him out of prison after he was about to gnaw on somebody's leg and just and then we kind of settle in, and we're trying to get water back, we're trying to get electricity back, we're establishing law and order, setting aside societal rules and things of that nature, which I think is necessary to the story, because otherwise it's just we end up in a Mad Max society, and I don't think that's quite what he was going for. Instead, he was trying to do kind of versus evil between the Boulder Free Zone and the is it Free Vegas or New Vegas?
Yeah, I might be thinking New Vegas from Fallout, the video game
Yeah.
Fallout. I might be thinking of that. I think it's just that they just call it Vegas. Oh.
Yeah, where basically the bad guys, the air quotes bad guys, even though it's really just the lieutenants and Randall Flagg who are the bad people. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of bad people in Vegas, but not everybody was bad.
Yeah, but he doesn't allow any of that chicanery, none of that smoking and drinking and promiscuous sex stuff. It's like, wow, you run a tight ship over there, my man.
Yeah, because he'll crucify you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nuts, because like you've got all of these. I don't actually. Why did I think that they're? No, that's just a scarecrow. Never mind. Ignore me. I for some reason I thought that this art had like crucified people on it, but man, like I believe he does end up crucifying some people when they break the rules. and it's just absolutely nuts. And I kind of love seeing Randall Flagg kind of crack, because when we meet him, he can like communicate in their dreams along with Mother Abigail, and then like some stuff starts happening that he doesn't have eyes on, and that's when we start to realize he's not omniscient. And he starts panicking, and I love seeing him panic.
Yeah, with a character like that, when he panics, you think that might actually, because he's always in control, that type. So when he's actually loses control, what's he going to do? So I mean, I think that's what makes this such a unique villain, and that you don't know the answer to that question, because he seems like he always knows what he's going to do. And that's why you see there at the end, hey, Ian, why you see there at the end, when Trash Can Man rolls up, he's like, oh no,
Oh, we're talking about Trash Can Man. Oh man,
always.
You get
to
jump in after we've been here an hour. We've covered a whole gamut. You've seen me kind of in the back cackling.
All right, cool. Now, Andrew, ask him all the questions you've asked him. Go.
Yeah, go ahead. Just give me the whole shebang. What are all my questions?
Oh Jesus!
Rapid fire.
What's your favorite part?
Okay. Man. I think Larry is probably my favorite character. I really love Larry a lot. There are a lot of good ones. I mean, even the antagonists, I think, are just so well done. I think that honestly, like, I hated her, but I kind of found Nadine's story to be really interesting. Every time she was on the page, it was just kind of like really intense. Just because like I didn't know like which way she was gonna go. I don't know. I mean, gosh, the whole book is just such a journey. Yeah, I don't know. I will say I don't think that I was as wowed by the ending as I wanted to be. It felt like definitely a little bit like Deus Ex Machina, and that kind of bothered me a little bit. But overall, like, it's so strange actually, because like the journey feels like so long and like you get so many details, and then I felt like it ended so abruptly, because you get like the explosion and it's like, oh, everything's kind of over. And I heard actually that have you guys watched the new adaptation or no?
No.
We were talking about that earlier, and the answer is no.
Okay. Yeah, I heard, I haven't watched it because I heard it was crap. But I heard that there's like kind of like an alternate ending, not like an alternate ending, but you get kind of the continuation of a few characters, and it felt a little bit more like, that's the one praise that some people have said of it, is that the ending.
And that was written by King himself. King actually,
really,
yeah, he's the one who actually wrote the added stuff at the end. Yeah,
oh,
that was
okay.
what was exciting. That's what had me excited to watch this, and I was like,
right.
Well, I'm not going to get there.
Well, maybe I'll just go and watch the final episode just to get that extra content. But man, I don't know. It was really good. I won't say that it's in like my top 5 King, what like I anticipated. Like I even was like kind of making the list in my head before I read The Stand. I was like, and The Stand will probably be up there. I'd say it's in my top 10. I've read about 30, I think. And it's good, but it's not like as top tier as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
But I still love it. I think it's like a 4.5, maybe 4 star for me. So
that's
okay. I
fair.
couldn't do top 10 King books, so yeah.
Right now, because I've only read about 15 or 16, I could probably squeeze out a top 10 King list that would then be completely invalid within a year.
I have an ongoing note on my phone. Like as I read more, I kind of like that way. It's a little bit easier for me rather than just like reading them all and then trying to think about it. I like have it ongoing. That way I can kind of adjust as I go. So I think it's number like 6. So it almost made top 5, but not quite.
Okay. So one thing we did talk a lot about before you got here was, do you like the middle section? Because it's, King's kind of slice of life style, where it kind of slows down after part 1, and then we're kind of living and adjusting to this post-apocalyptic setting.
I did like it for a time, and I think that King introducing like the bomb was like a good thing, because it kind of, I think, and he mentions it in his memoir, and that's the one thing that kind of sucked about my reading experience, is that I already read his memoir, and he drops the whole there's a bomb and it's going to go off in the stand in that story. So I knew like, okay, there's going to be a bomb at some point, something's going to happen. And so I think that was necessary, because for me, like the whole tedium of like just the day, not like the day in the life, but everything going on, I appreciated it to an extent, but I think there were just so many characters in this story that it was a little bit much. I almost wish that we'd gotten that a little bit less from some characters and focused a little bit more heavily on just like 2 or 3. But at the same time, this is his magnum opus, although I guess the Dark Tower, but as far as like standalone, although you could argue that this is a Dark Tower novel. So I don't know. I liked the middle. It was not my favorite. I think honestly of the 3 sections, I think part 1 is my favorite for sure. Just like the execution of the disease spreading and everything like that. It was terrifying. And really it's like only a disease novel for the first portion, and then you kind of just get into this like post-apocalyptic kind of situation where it's not really about the sickness anymore. It's just about them adjusting to life after it. And I think the middle was the weakest part for me, but I still did enjoy it. I will say I enjoy like that kind of story typically from him. Like I really like 11/22/63. I think that is like kind of him doing that, but exceptionally well. I think that's the most like polished of his like minutia kind of stories, at least the ones that I've read. But I still did enjoy it. So yeah.
I think you're making Mike happy.
Oh really?
Like, Mike loves 11/22/63.
I think most people that have read it do. Yeah.
There's a couple of people I've come across who haven't loved it, and I'm just like, how?
They just don't love. You know?
That's what it is. Oh my gosh. That is the best Stephen King ending of any book I've read from him.
I kind of told
He didn't even write it.
Previously. What?
He didn't write the end of 11/22/63.
What do you mean he didn't write the end of 11/22/63?
His son did.
What?
I've never heard that. But, okay.
Yeah, so basically he wasn't going to have the whole dance and thing like that. I believe Joe came in and was just like, hey, why don't you do this for the end of 11/22/63?
So Stephen wrote it, just Joe gave him the idea.
Yeah, he still penned it. And also don't spoil 11/22/63 because this is a stand spoiler discussion. Some people watching may not have seen.
No, and don't ruin that moment because 11/22/63 still has my teardrop stains on those last few pages. I'm not gonna lie about it. That book was.
You should go buy a new copy.
I'm not a crier, but that one teared me up.
I had broken up with Stephen King at that time.
What?
And that was the book that brought me back.
I mean, that was what, 2012? 11?
2011, because I hadn't read him since the end of Dark Tower.
Wow.
So it'd been about 6-7 years since I had read him, and I'm such a big nut about the JFK assassination. I was like, oh shit.
You have to read it now.
All right, god dang it. I guess every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And of course, it was a great book. So then I was back. I'm thinking I'm back.
Yeah. I mean, of the modern King, it's easily my favorite because that's in my top 3, and the other 2 are more like classic King.
That and Revival, I think, are just.
I still haven't read Revival, but I've been hearing a lot of good things about it.
I just picked up Revival last month.
I was gonna say,
Life for Life, man. He nails it so good in Revival.
Yeah. Really? Okay, cool. I just read Joyland by him this month, or in July. For August, I'm going to read Insomnia with you, Andrew. But
hey, Andrew, that's a nice little cough you got there. You got a little super flu going on? Or?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I had a nice little exposure last week. So yeah. But all better.
Do you love we live in that world now where every time we have a sneeze, we think that we're sicker than we actually are?
Oh no, I was as sick as I was. I was down for the count last week.
I had COVID while I was listening to The Stand. I forgot to mention that. That was an interesting experience having it. Like, because I thought about it, I was like, no, I didn't like it at all. I was actually homesick from work, and I was like listening to it. I was like, man, I'm really glad this is not the Stand level of sick. But still, it gets in your head about it. Yeah, you'll start coughing. You'll be like, oh my gosh.
Like I said, when I had these all on a schedule to do these reviews, had it scheduled beforehand. I was doing one a month. And it just so happened that, like, literally right when everyone was at home was when I was doing my review of The Stand. I was like, I swear to God, I did not plan this, you guys. So.
I mean, hey, that's a good time. I feel like everybody was picking it up around that
everybody
time.
had a renewed interest in it after that. I think so.
I had to wait till it wasn't as cool to pick it up anymore.
You guys see that tweet where Stephen King says it's not like Captain Trips because, with Captain Trips, you had no hope. It was 99.4% of the population.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that. And someone was like, what would you even know? Have you even read that book? I'm like, if that doesn't describe Twitter right there in one tweet.
I did see that. I forgot about it until you mentioned it.
People think it's fake, but that's very, very real. So that's the internet in a nutshell.
I have not seen that. It amazes me that Stephen King is even on Twitter.
I don't know.
Yeah,
He's
I know.
pretty
It's like
political.
if my mom like said that she got like a new Blu-ray or something, I'd be like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing about
Well,
King. Like, I love his writing, but every once in a while he'll use a phrase or something that I'll be like, man, I don't know if that's like. I think I read Elevation, and there was like some teenage kid who was like, "You dig it," and I was like, man, kids don't say that anymore.
I think somebody said in Billy Summers, he has like all the
He did in
kids
there
are getting
too.
together like playing Monopoly, and she's like, but no kids do that shit anymore.
Yeah, I
That's
noticed
like
that
the
in
poor
Billy
kids
Summers
do.
too. That's right. Hey, why not? It's good still.
Oh yeah, but yeah, he would
whenever
drop
whenever I think of
a name
Monopoly,
or something. What
Dane
about Dane
Cook
Cook?
ruined Monopoly for me.
I guess I don't know this joke.
I don't either.
He's got this whole joke with his grandmother playing Monopoly, and he just goes off on his grandmother, and it's funny. It's back when Dane Cook was still funny.
Yeah, but King will do that a lot. Like he's pretty consistent, and like it doesn't bother my immersion level too much. But I'd say at least like once a book lately, I've been
I like
like,
when
yeah,
he busts
that's
out
weird.
some of those names we haven't heard since like the 40s, like Darlene or some
Right.
shit. It's like no one's called this anymore, Steve. When's the last time you met a Betty? Come on.
He's probably got like 2 or 3 friends still called Betty. My grandma-in-law is named Betty. Yeah.
Exactly.
He'll always like bang out like a Beatles song in the Dark Tower or something like that, like Hey Jude. It's interesting. What always throws me with King is because he's writing in the 50s and he'll do a realistic 50s. It's when people will just drop the N-word, and I'm just like, wait, what? And so like wasn't used to that
Right.
in literature at all. And it's just like I'm looking at it, I was just like, and he hasn't been canceled for this. And then the more I like think about it, like I'm just
I'm
like, I
thinking
mean,
about, oh
if
my
he,
God, there are audiobooks for these. So someone actually had to narrate these. Ouch.
so I was listening to it, and
That's an incredible audiobook.
It's a fantastic audiobook. My wife and my child were in the car, and
oh my gosh, your
why
child was in the car. That's traumatizing.
And after about 10 minutes, my wife just kind of looks at me and goes, "Can you not?" And I'm just like, "Oh,
I'm surprised she made it 10 minutes, man."
Yeah, she was like, "Can you not kind of do this in the car?" And I was just like, "Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from."
That's a bold move. Yeah, I can't even get
Andrew,
by watching like
I get those moments where I'm like, man, am I just like the worst parent ever? And then I hear a story like this, I'm like, I guess I could be worse.
Yeah, bro, listening to it with your kid in the car, that's like the worst book you could possibly be. I mean, maybe like 50 Shades would be worse.
Hopefully it wasn't like the refrigerator scene. So.
Oh my gosh, I'd love that scene.
I'm pretty sure it was
iconic.
like one of the flashbacks of like one of those really long flashbacks where like we're not following the kids. It's like somebody random in the town, or it's like one of the boys' like fathers.
Yeah, but the thing about it is any moment shit can get crazy.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Pennywise will pop out whenever he feels like it.
It's like, oh, this is so wholesome. He's just going into the pharmacy. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God. I need to reread it. Every time you bring up a certain scene, it makes me want to read it again.
I think that the one scene you should definitely keep away from is Henry Bowers and Patrick Hochstetter. There's a very particular scene that I think if your children heard that, they might be damaged for good.
Yeah.
For good.
I know exactly what scene you're talking about. And yeah, I mean, I probably would have turned it off. But like, I mean, at the time she was like 1. And so it's just like, she's not going to.
Yeah. All right, that's fair. I'll listen to like some less kid-friendly music in the car with my kids sometimes because I'm like, they won't pick up on this. That's fine. Although I gotta say, Steven Weber did a creepy job in that. Like every time he was Pennywise, it just like came to life. So I mean, that's some creepy stuff. So
I'm full on like okay boomer when it comes to audiobooks. I just can't do it.
Really?
I'm glad it gets more people to experience some of these books now that wouldn't have actually read them before because they think they're too long. But so I got nothing against them. I can't do it. I said too many years of blocking out my kids. You can't turn that off now.
Yeah, see, that's what I used to block out the kids. So
I got into audio via Doctor Who audio dramas, which Big Finish out in the UK. They did all the classic Doctors. They got them all to come in, and they did like full cast audios and like adventures and things of that nature. And when I started working in my office, I would just listen to those when I was allowed to wear earbuds. And then that gradually, I got back into reading after years away from, I was probably reading 10 to 15 books a year. And then all of a sudden I ranked 50 to 100. And now I'm shooting for 200 this year.
You're at the rate you're going, you'll hit it.
That's nuts to me. I put my Goodreads at 100, and that's just because I started reading some manga paperbacks, which you can read in one sitting if you really, really want to. But I've actually slowed back down on that. So I think it's actually every time I go on Goodreads now, it's like getting sassy with me, telling me I'm like 2 or 3 books behind schedule. I'm like, calm down.
I set my reading goal to 1 because that used to stress me out, and I would just not like it. So yeah, I just read however many I want. In my head, I'm like I want to read 100, but Goodreads can leave me alone. So
such a bully.
I'm hoping to hit about 15 to 25 King books this year.
This is the way.
I've like every time I go to my half price books, I go straight to the Stephen King section to see what hardcover they have.
I have every one of his books on hardcover, and I still when I go into used bookstore, I go look at the Stephen King book. I don't know why.
You never
find some magical book I've never seen before or something. I don't know.
I mean, there's some pretty cool editions out there. So,
somebody just unloaded editions at my local half price books. So they had like the still wrapped Cemetery Dance, like Black House and Talisman.
Which I haven't read those yet.
Well, I don't think Mike likes the Talisman, if I remember correctly.
I don't like a character in the Talisman. It just completely destroys it for me.
This is devolved from a stand chat to just let's talk Stephen King.
Stephen King.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. It's just how it happens. I think it's always so funny though, how like if you get a room full of like big Stephen King fans, each one of them is going to have at least like one divisive opinion, either one book that like is in their top 5 that everybody else hates, or like the opposite.
Yeah, like Song of Susanna is disastrous. It's terrible. It's awful.
I haven't finished The Dark Tower yet.
It doesn't bug me, Mike. It does not. I know. Like I was like, hey, this was bugging me.
When it was new, it was much more divisive than it is now. People that are discovering it now and they're binge reading it, they're not having nearly any problems with it. So I said, I got no problem being the grumpy old man in the corner on an island for this one. I have no problems. But clearly, I wasn't ready to let it go like I was hoping that I was. So
it was funny because back when I quit The Dark Tower, it was on Song of Susanna, and so I thought like I had this memory of like that completely didn't happen in the book. I remember like Susanna like running and getting tackled by a monster and for some reason. Like if I try and recall, that doesn't happen in the book, so I don't know what I'm remembering. And it ended up being.
That sounds better than what we actually got.
Don't spoil it for me. Don't spoil it. I've only read up to The Drawing of 3 because I read The Gunslinger. It was like one of the first Stephen King books I read, and I was just like, what on earth is this? And so I was like, never mind. And so I put it off. And then I reread it a couple of years back because I wanted to get through it. And I got to The Dark Tower or The Drawing of 3. And my little brother and I were supposed to read them together, but we just got busy. And so it's now like a year and a half later. And I feel like I need to go back and read them again because it's just so out there that I feel like I'm missing something when I jump into the wastelands.
But yeah, you're right. You get a group of Stephen King fans together. One of them will have one nuclear opinion that everyone else is like,
"Are you an idiot?" Yeah.
Like I didn't like the ending of 11/22/63, and I'm like, what?
That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if we read the same book. If that's
maybe you got a bootleg copy. Yeah.
That's what it is. The one without Joe Hill or whatever.
Yeah, no, it was funny because I think Joe Hill was like a beta reader on it, and he kind of took his dad aside and was just like, yeah, no, why don't you do this instead? And so he got his dad to go back and rewrite the end of 11/22.
Thank God Joe was his beta reader, not Owen, because whew.
Yeah. Is Owen a writer?
Well,
I mean, if that's what you want to call it.
Shade.
Sleeping Beauties might be the most miserable hate read I've ever had.
Like, I've avoided it because of that reason.
It's so bad, so painful. And I still to
now,
this day
Kevin was a writer, though, right?
Stephen was even involved in that. He just put his name on the front of it to help Owen out.
Man, Tabitha's a writer, though, right? Tabitha
I haven't
King.
read anything, but yeah.
I think all of them.
I've never
do. I think
seen.
it's a requirement
Never
to
seen
be
one
like
of her books.
family.
I mean, it feels like a family business at this point. It's like, what are you even doing if you aren't writing? You know?
That's right. One of them wants to be a lawyer. They're like, "What is wrong?"
But
with
you notice that Joe Hill kind of got sick of always being compared to his dad, so he's kind of just sunk back into his comics again.
Yeah,
which he does very well.
I need to. The only Joe Hill that I've read one volume of Lock and Key, and then I've read. What have I read? What was it? Oh, Nosferatu. Yeah, I read that last year. I really want to read that Fireman. I've heard that one.
I'm doing Fireman for Suki season this year in October. So.
Hey, I'll join you.
Was telling us that the Fireman's really good.
That's the one that's been like highest on my TBR, that and continuing with Lock and Key. Because I read the first volume because the show was coming out and I wasn't crazy about the show. So
the show was trash. That's why.
Yeah, I didn't even make it through half the
Honestly,
season.
because Lock and Key was so bad, that's why I was expecting Sandman to be so bad. And then
I've heard it's really good.
Which blew me away. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm curious. How many volumes, because I have the first 2 volumes of Sandman, how many volumes should I read to be able to enjoy season 1?
Season 1's just the first 2 trades. Yeah.
Preludes
awesome. And Nocturnes and The Doll's House.
Okay, cool. So those are the 2 I have. I randomly found them at a little free library a couple months ago.
See, we're going to turn this into a nerd comic chat now. What's up, Andrew?
Yeah, sorry.
It's all evolving. I'm fine with it. I've got about another 5 minutes, so let's bang it out.
Sounds good. Well, I'm glad I could at least pop on for a little bit. Sorry about that, you guys.
No,
it's not
kids,
a problem.
You know how it is.
Family is important.
Now I'm thinking we just need to have like a big old coffee house discussion about Stephen King stuff because I think we can do that for a while.
Yeah, you can talk forever about Stephen King.
Mike, if you
I probably should. I used to do those Stephen King palavers, but I didn't. I had a hard time finding people that were as nuts about Stephen King. After really, my goal was to finally get Jaime and Fuego on the channel, and once we did that, it was like, all right, well, what do I do now?
We've peaked, yeah.
And then I think I had Brian Lee Durfee on, and we were going to talk about Stephen King, and we talked about Stephen King for maybe 10% of that episode because Brian, love him to death. That is one of the most awesome people I've ever met. But that dude, you cannot keep him on task.
He's all over the place. Yeah.
Why don't we do a Saturday nights with Stephen King?
Could do something like that.
That'd be fun.
Thanks for reminding me. I got to get that together.
Yeah. Right. Come on, Mike. You're not busy.
Trying to get everybody, on the same schedule and stuff. And that one, it's, because the theme is on Saturday night, it's kind of hard because, time zones and things like that.
For sure.
Let's be honest here. A lot of people actually have lives and they're doing stuff on Saturday nights.
That's
the time we're readers. We don't really do that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't leave my house.
Oh, I do want to show you something, Andrew, before you go.
Oh?
Because you said today that you were interested. So drop me a mailbox.
Oh, yes.
And I'll send them to you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Right. No problem. They're heavy, though.
That's so cool.
It's going to be media mail.
Are you extending your TBR, Andrew? No way.
I feel like he's much more open to reading independent releases than I am.
Well,
it's a time thing for me. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Legend of
Blackjack. Anything to give these people more exposure, I'm for that. Like we talked about, everybody's been talking about Legend of Blackjack. I think I probably got him. He told me that just today he's about doubled his sales in one day. So I'm always happy.
I've met AR. AR lives 20 minutes from me.
No, that's awesome.
He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, I've had drinks with him. So he's such a great guy. And honestly, I think your kids would love Legend of Blackjack. It's got that never-ending story vibe, where it's that kind of timeless fantasy. So it kind of appeals from age 10 to age. I'm 32, and I loved it. So
yeah, I'm about halfway through. It's a fun read. I'm enjoying it.
Sounds like how I explained Princess Bride. It don't matter how old you are. Some stories just work for every age.
Like it, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
One of the cool things about, and I know you don't care about the audiobook, but AR narrated his own audiobook. And I give him so much crap for this because it was pure brilliance, because it's so expensive to narrate an audiobook. And a lot of times when an indie author will do it themselves, it sounds like garbage. What he did is, we've got a local car dealership that has a chain, and he knew a guy. And so where they go and do their voiceovers for their commercials, he would go in after hours and use their sound equipment.
Wow.
That's how he narrated his audiobook.
It's being resourceful. I like that.
There you go.
Just absolutely pure brilliance. I've derailed it again.
That's all right.
It happens.
That's what live chats are for.
But yeah, I saw you today said that you needed these, and I was going to tell you.
Oh yeah, no, I
I didn't want to say it on the
Amazon
comments
wish list
there because I didn't want
already.
anybody being like, "Whoa, well, send me this one." You know, I was like, "Well, I'm
What
not
else you
talking
got
about
over there, Mike? Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that. So I look forward to getting that. That said, guys, it is time for me to go put my children to bed.
You guys like that 55% we talked to the stand? That was good stuff, huh?
Yeah, I got about 5 minutes of that. It was great.
Man, it's fine, Ian. We can chat about it. We can, we got Discord chats and
no worries. Hey, are you gonna do one for Insomnia, Andrew?
a live show?
Yeah. It's not as big of a king title, so I didn't know if you were going to.
I wasn't planning on it, but I mean,
no, but you got to do a reaction video after you finish Dark Tower.
Yeah, that's what you should. Hey, oh man, that's one of my favorite
reaction. Yeah.
I love those actually immediate ones.
I'm planning on finishing the Dark Tower this week, and I read all 7 of the. Well, I read all 8, I should say. I read all 8. Salem's Lot, The Stand, and Insomnia as part of my journey along the beam. And so I'm planning on doing my journey through the Dark Tower video. So that is planned.
You should do like a react to reading the last chapter, Mike. That's actually how I found your channel a few years back when you did a live reaction of you reading that chapter in Changes in Dresden Files. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh yes, this is great! It's such a good way to kind of experience it."
Butcher actually saw that video, and that's when he messaged me and just said like,
really?
That was so satisfying to watch, and I was like. At the time, that was the biggest author had ever like even contacted me. So I was just like, "This is exciting for you." Shit.
I've made it. Yeah, you should do something like that, Andrew. Especially because I feel like Dark Tower is just one of King's most controversial, I guess, endings. Yeah, you should do like a live reaction to the ending or something like that.
All right. Fair enough. When I get to the final chapter, if it's the final chapter, I will record myself reading it.
Yeah, and I can just like kind of watch your soul die slowly.
Oh my gosh.
Fair enough.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I do appreciate it. Anytime that I get to talk Stephen King, I'm always there. So thank you so much.
I'm already planning another Stephen live show with just Dark Tower. So
I would happily come on and throw cold water all over everybody. We'd have to do it.
Perfect.
Happily.
Perfect. Yeah. Me and Joanna are already talking about it, and your name's already been chucked into the ring.
Nice.
Great.
Well, thanks for letting little old me hop on for a bit. I appreciate it, you guys.
Ian, you are amazing. I appreciate you taking the time out of your hectic life today to jump on and talk with us nerds. And Mike, it is always a delight. Sarah's not here, but Sarah is absolutely amazing, and I've got nothing but love for her. She's a very good friend, and I just appreciate you all taking the time to come on and chat with us, or me.
Anytime, my friend.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
That's it, guys. Till next time. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.